Have you ever wondered what survived the great flood besides what was on the ark? The Bible tells us the waters covered the highest mountains, wiping the slate of the world clean. But what if something, or someone, from that ancient wicked world managed to endure? What if a giant, a relic of a cursed lineage, defied the very wrath of God? This is the story of Og, the last king of the giants. Our story begins in a world teetering on the brink of annihilation. It was a time of legends, a time of fallen angels and their monstrous offspring, the Nephilim. These were giants in every sense of the word, beings of immense power and insatiable appetites. Among them, one name would echo through the ages: Og. He wasn't just a giant, he was a king, ruler of Bashan, a land known for its mighty oaks and colossal inhabitants. Imagine a world where beings of such stature walked the earth, their shadows stretching for miles, their voices like the rumble of an earthquake. This was Og's world, but this world was corrupt, filled with violence and wickedness that grieved the heart of its creator. And so the judgment was decreed: a flood. A cataclysmic deluge to wash away the sin and start anew with one righteous man, Noah, and his family. The command was given: build an ark, a vessel of salvation for the chosen few and for the animal kingdom. As the first drops of rain fell, they were a curiosity. But soon the drops became a torrent. The springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened. The water rose relentlessly. It swirled around ankles, then waists, then over the rooftops of the highest cities. The cries of the perishing were drowned out by the roar of the deluge. Mountains became islands, and then even the islands sank beneath the waves. Everything that had breath on dry land perished. But what of Og? Legends, ancient texts, and rabbinic traditions paint a fascinating and terrifying picture. They tell us that as the waters surged, devouring everything in their path, the giant king Og made a desperate, audacious move. He didn't build a boat. Perhaps his pride wouldn't allow it, or perhaps he simply believed he was too mighty to be destroyed. He waded through the rising tide, the water that drowned lesser men only reaching his knees, then his waist. He saw the ark, a lone wooden sanctuary tossed on the tempestuous sea. He saw his world dying, his people, the other giants, succumbing to the waves. In that moment of utter chaos, Og, the mighty king, was humbled. He swam towards the ark, his massive arms parting the churning water. He reached the vessel and clung to its side, a monstrous figure against the gopher wood. Now why would Noah, the man of God, tolerate the presence of a Nephilim, a remnant of the very corruption God sought to destroy? The story goes that Og pleaded for his life. He took an oath, promising to serve Noah and his descendants as a slave for all eternity if only he were allowed to live. Noah, perhaps out of pity, or perhaps seeing a divine purpose we can only guess at, agreed. But how could a giant of Og's size survive outside the ark? The logistics seem impossible. The texts suggest a clever, almost surreal solution. Noah drilled a hole in the side of the ark and would pass food out to Og each day. For 40 days and 40 nights, as the world drowned, Og clung to the side of salvation, sustained by the very man whose God had unleashed the apocalypse. Imagine that scene, the endless rain, the raging sea, and this colossal being, tethered to life by a sliver of grace, watching the old world dissolve into a watery grave. He was a spectator to the end of his own era. When the floodwaters finally receded and the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat, a new world was born. Noah and his family stepped out onto fresh, clean earth, and with them, stepping from the shadow of the ark, was Og, a living fossil, a king born from chaos. He was a shadow of the old world, a terrifying reminder of what had been, now standing in the dawn of a new age. His oath of servitude was fulfilled, but a king's spirit is not easily broken. For centuries, Og walked this new earth. He saw civilizations rise and fall. He saw Noah's descendants multiply and spread across the land, fulfilling the command to be fruitful. He watched as the memory of the flood faded into myth for many. But for Og, it was a searing, living memory. Did he remain a servant? Or did he, over time, reclaim his power, his old nature reasserting itself? The trail of Og reappears hundreds of years later, and this is where his story becomes truly astounding. He is no longer a desperate survivor clinging to an ark. He is once again Og, king of Bashan. The book of Deuteronomy describes his kingdom as the land of the giants. It speaks of his legendary iron bed, a testament to his staggering size. The bed was 9 cubits long and 4 cubits wide. That is roughly 13.5 feet long by 6 feet wide. This wasn't just a tall tale. It was a record of a formidable real enemy that the Israelites were about to face. And who was leading the Israelites? None other than Moses. The same Moses who had parted the Red Sea, who had received the 10 Commandments directly from God on Mount Sinai. After 40 years of wandering in the desert, the Israelites were on the cusp of entering the Promised Land. But standing in their way was the last bastion of the old world, Og and his kingdom. The Israelites were terrified. They had heard tales of the giants in the land, and now they were face to face with their king, a being who had literally survived the end of the world. He was more than a king. He was a living legend, a symbol of primordial power. To them he must have seemed invincible. How could they, a nation of former slaves, possibly defeat a giant who had stared down God's judgment and lived to tell the tale? But Moses rallied his people. He reminded them that the same God who had delivered them from Egypt, who had sustained them in the wilderness, was with them still. He told them not to fear. The battle that followed was epic. It wasn't just a clash of armies, it was a clash of ages. The new world of God's chosen people against the last remnant of the old antediluvian world. The outcome was decisive. The Lord delivered Og into the hands of the Israelites. They utterly destroyed him, his sons, and all his people, leaving no survivors. Moses himself is credited in some traditions with landing the final, fatal blow against the giant king. The man who spoke with God face to face ended the reign of the giant who had clung to God's ark. The shadow of the old world was finally and completely vanquished. The story of Og is a powerful, haunting thread woven through the tapestry of biblical history. It connects the world before the flood with the world of Moses. It's a story of survival, of audacity, and ultimately of the unshakable power of God's divine plan. Og defied the waters, he defied time, but in the end he could not defy the will of the Almighty. He remains a chilling reminder that no matter how great or powerful any being may seem, they are but a footnote in the grand, sweeping story written by God. What do you think? Is this an allegorical tale, a literal account, or a legend that grew over time? The mystery of Og, the giant who survived the flood, continues to fascinate and challenge us to this day. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey into the ancient world. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into forgotten lore, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an update. Let me know in the comments what ancient mystery you'd like me to explore next. Until then, keep questioning.